again, try and make it 8 minutes with 2 minutes of Q&A. How about that? The whole 10 minutes. How about that? Does that work for everybody?
Sounds good to me.
Before I start, I want to say something. In running for an office like this, you have the opportunity to go all over the state and meet with all kind of groups. And I've been here in Lexington County a couple of times, and you really should be commended because you just don't see this kind of attendance much anywhere else. I've been to actual rallies where there were more people than are here in the room right now. So that makes me very proud of Lexington County Republicans because you're actually involved and interested, and that is fantastic. That's what we've got to have if we want to turn our country around. My name is Benjamin Dunn, and I am a candidate for the United States Senate against Lindsey Graham, and I am running because there is a better way. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that tonight. But the first thing I want to do is take a few minutes and let you know a little bit about myself. I grew up in Pickens County, just outside of Clemson, and I am a graduate of Clemson University. I came to Columbia to attend law school at USC. Met my wife while there and have stayed in the Columbia area ever since. I bounced in between Lexington and Richland County. Right now I consider myself a Lexington expatriate because my wife fell in love with a subdivision in the Ballantyne area, so I was obliged to become a Richland County resident for the time being. But in any event, I am an attorney. I'm a partner in a small law firm in downtown Columbia. My practice consists principally of real estate matters, contractual disputes, and employment matters. And I mention that because doing that kind of work gives me the opportunity on a daily basis to see the obstacles that this overly expansive, ever-growing federal bureaucracy puts in the way of individuals who are just trying to do things as simple as buy a home, start or operate a business. Likewise, I've got some military experience. I've been an infantry officer in the South Carolina Army National Guard for almost 20 years. I am a veteran of the war in Afghanistan where I served on an embedded training team, which as a practical matter, what that meant was it was myself and a sergeant who advised and mentored and went on missions with a company of soldiers from the Afghan National Army. So I've seen the sharp end of foreign policy, and I understand the sacrifices that it requires of our service members and of their families. And of course, I'm sure we've got several veterans here, but I know we've got Trip Newsom, who's a veteran of Iraq and went over and did an extremely tough mission with the 178th Field Artillery. But more importantly, I think, than my professional or military experience is that I am a Christian, and I am the father of 4 beautiful children, and their ages are 11 down to 4. And I am concerned that where we are in this country right now, that we are essentially bequeathing bankruptcy to future generations. The America that I know and that my parents and that my grandparents enjoyed and found opportunity in, it does not appear to be the America that we are leaving to future generations. We've got over now a $17 trillion national debt. When you include unfunded liabilities, particularly in the entitlement areas, we have it's over $100 trillion. Depends a little bit on the estimate, but it's a big, unimaginable sum of money that is not repayable by my generation, nor by my children, or maybe even my grandchildren's generation. Therefore, we have got to change course and restore some fiscal sanity to Washington. That's the first step of what I said earlier was the better way that I would like to go to Washington to enact. The second thing I would like to do in going to Washington is to divest power from the federal government back to the states so that they can be the 50 sovereign laboratories of representative democracy that they were intended to be. Our Constitution created a federal government of enumerated powers, and everything else was reserved to the states. Over time, of course, we have seemingly flipped that balance so that now we have this ever-growing bureaucracy of a federal government that wants to worm its way into every aspect of our lives. That trend absolutely must be reversed. And it must be reversed soon before we end up with a federal government that is so big and so expensive that it collapses under its own weight, and we go through a generational malaise in order to get things straight. The final thing I would like to do in going to Washington is take the 1,000 small steps that are going to be required to put this nation back on track. You know, we did not get into the state we are in now overnight, and we will not get out of it by means of one piece of legislation, by one term of Congress, or even by one 6-year term of a United States Senator. Therefore, it is critical that we put people in place who are committed to taking the small steps day in and day out, year in, year out, that are going to be required to get America back on course. That is what I'm committed to doing, and that is what I will do if you send me to Washington. Excuse me. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Benjamin Dunn. I am running for the United States Senate against Lindsey Graham, and I'm doing so because there is a better way. We do not have to tolerate what we have put up with for the last 12 years in the United States Senate, and I would therefore ask for your support in going to Washington to turn the great ship that is America back on a true course. Now, I would like to take a few minutes to answer any questions you might have, or if not, I'll just start running through issues. But before I do that, let me open it up. What are your questions of me? Yes, sir.
Do you think we should continue funding these unending wars that we have throughout the world? In Iraq and Afghanistan, seem to be involved in Syria. We're all over the world.
One of the things I forgot to plug, which my campaign manager always yells at me about, is I would ask you, please go to my website, which is my name, benjamindunn.org. That's benjamindunn.org, because I have a lot of relatively detailed position statements. That's one of the things that I address. Military intervention is not something that we should take on without an extreme amount of caution and circumspection, because as you alluded to, there really aren't any short wars. When we get involved in some place, we have a tendency to stay there for a long time. For example, we've had people in Germany and in Okinawa since 1945. We've had people in Korea since the sort of end of the war, although, you know, it seems to flare up every few years, maybe not to an actual war status, but at least rhetoric-wise, and in terms of little incidents on the border, we've gone over half a century on the Korean Peninsula. So we've seen what's happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that we apply military force when there is a vital national interest of the United States at stake. For example, after 9/11, I do think it was necessary that we go in and take care of Afghanistan, which had essentially become an al-Qaeda training base. However, the way probably to do that would be to go in, take out those elements that needed to be flushed out and or destroyed. But then we probably needed to get the heck out. This notion of nation building just never seems to work out the way that it is advertised. And it ends up just being something that ends up costing us blood and treasure, and the end product that we end up with just doesn't seem to work out to our best interest. So again, we go in when it's a vital national interest of the United States, not otherwise, and the whole idea of nation building is just not something that works out real well, so I do not support that. Yes, sir.
I got a question. Well, first a statement. My son's a plumber. About 2 months ago, his health insurance went up 54%. It's deductible for $6,000. What are we going to do about this Obamacare mess we got into?
Well, I don't know if I believe you, sir, because the president said all this was taken care of. So, I mean, shouldn't we believe it? No, I mean, before
they
listen.
elected a lot of people to go in there 2 years ago to get rid of it. It's still here.
The Affordable Care Act is a train wreck, and it is a travesty, and it is so far harmed more people than it has helped, and it will continue to do so as time goes on. It's got to be repealed, and it's got to be replaced. Now, in all honesty, I don't know if that's going to happen as long as President Obama is in office, because you would have to get a veto-proof majority. And while the Republicans may take the Senate this year in this election, I don't know if they're going to have those kind of numbers. But even if you do have even a small majority, that will be enough to start taking steps in the direction, and hopefully, after 2016, we can get a full repeal in place. But we the efforts of the House have been well founded in trying to get rid of it, and we need to get rid of it as soon as we can. Remember this too, though, that the real failure in healthcare policy wasn't Obamacare, because when you put progressive liberals in charge of the White House and both houses of Congress, they're going to come up with a progressive, liberal, big government solution to whatever problem they see. The real failure occurred back a decade ago in the 108th and 109th Congress, when we had the White House and we had both houses of Congress. Admittedly, our majority in the Senate was slim, but nonetheless, we did have a majority. At that time, it was clear that healthcare costs were expanding at a rate that was not sustainable. Healthcare was already at that point becoming unaffordable for a lot of people. We could have worked on implementing free market reforms to try to bring down costs of the system. And for example, there are 1,000 different ways that you could expand and tweak the health savings accounts that President Bush initially was able to get through. You can expand that program, and the beauty of that is it puts individuals, it gives them flexibility in their healthcare spending, as well as it imposes individual responsibility. And that you actually have, folks have to have skin in the game when it comes to making healthcare decisions, like any other economic decision. Because if you essentially are given, in any area of life, if you're given a credit card with no limit, well, you're going to spend like there's no limit. And so that's the beauty in my mind of the health savings account, is it puts that responsibility on the individual. We could have also done things like either amended or repealed the Ferguson Act. And what that would do is it would allow health insurance companies to compete across state lines. Because right now, insurance is compartmentalized, state by state across the country. The reason that would be a good thing is it would allow health insurers to create much larger pooling arrangements, and therefore allow you to spread the risk a lot further and among far greater numbers of people, so that you can then the economics of, let's say you have somebody who went through cancer and beat it. Well, now they have that pre-existing condition. Under the law we have today, the only place they can get insured is through certain employer plans. But if you alter the system, allow for these larger pooling arrangements to take place, then the economics make sense that folks with pre-existing conditions can get affordable health insurance on a free competitive market. Those are two minor examples. There are a lot of other things that could have been tried, and frankly, not all of them would have worked. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't try. And when folks on the right, when there's a clear problem and it's well defined, and it's well understood, and there are free market approaches that could be tried to handle the situation, and we do nothing, then we're going to get something like Obamacare, and that's not just we're not just talking about healthcare now. We're talking across the board. So that would be my response to what we do with Obamacare. We got to get rid of it, but we also have to change some laws to take off some of the just ridiculous explosion in healthcare costs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I really do appreciate your time.
Sure.